Hi guys, my name's James, I'm from Tizwaz Riding School in Bournemouth, and today I'm going to be reviewing these two SVs that we have that we use for dash training here. So again, thank you once again to Catherine Elliott from Tizwaz for lending me bikes, sights, everything that I need to not only do my job as an instructor, but also to play with steep riders and do some bike reviews. Now, before I get into these SVs, I just want to do a quick disclaimer about the condition of these bikes. These are 2019 plate bikes, and there's a lot of corrosion around the engine casings and the headers. Don't for one second think that is anything to do with Suzuki. It's my fault. I was riding these in road salty conditions, and we had quite a sudden lockdown at the start of this year, and I just sort of chucked the bikes in the shed and forgot about them. Thing is, even a couple of days in a damp, leaky shed covered in road salt, that's going to corrode stuff, isn't it? So it's not Suzuki that make these go all rusty, that's me. They're also a little bit grubby. Normally I clean up a bike before I do a video with it, but these are working bikes, you know, these go out every day, wind, rain and shine, and get absolutely battered, you know, by the elements. So they're a little bit grubby, so sorry about that. So getting straight into the SVs, Suzuki brought the SV out in 1999, and at the time sort of the midweight twin class was quite lacking. They do a lot of racing with mini twins, they call them in America, and super twins as they're called in the UK. And at the time, really one of the best bikes you could buy was a Kawasaki GPZ500. Not a bad bike, just pretty old in the tooth and nowhere near as quick as a 99 SV. So when Suzuki brought out the SVs, it just absolutely took the competition by storm, and a lot of riders actually started calling the mini twins and the super twins the SV Challenge, because all you'd see on the starting grid would just be a big pack of SVs. And even if you go to the Isle of Man today and watch, you know, the super twin races there'll be a lot of SVs or SV engine bikes like the Suzuki Gladius in the competition. Now, I've got a long history with the SVs. My second big bike when I was in my early 20s and I had long flowing luxurious hair was an SV. Nate's going to show you a picture of that, and just want to say I am in trainers at the time. I was young and I didn't know any better. Now I'm a bike instructor. I never go on a bike unless I've got proper kit on. What I absolutely loved about my SV, it was light, it was flickable, it was responsive, it was cheap to run, it cost me very little money to buy, and you had a load of engine braking. And as kind of a new sort of squid, I found that I was hitting corners sometimes. I was coming up to the corner and thinking, oh, I'm going a bit too quick. You got decent brakes on these SVs, but just chopping that throttle gives you so much negative torque on the rear wheel. It really does help you sort of scrub speed off quite suddenly coming into a corner. The other thing I really liked about these SVs, all my mates were on inline 4s, and I found when I was riding in a pack, as I was coming up to a roundabout, my mates would have to change 3-4 gears to get around the roundabout. I generally could either leave it in gear or possibly just do like one gear change to their 3, because you have a lot more of a usable mid-range of torque. So 2017 saw the return of the SV, and it also saw the return of the trellis frame. 2007 they went to 2 spark plugs per cylinder, and they continued that in the new models. And just like the previous ones, it's fuel injected again. A lot of people don't like fuel injection, a lot of people don't like carburetors. Look, they both work, they both put your air fuel mixture into the engine just fine. Difference is, you know, the throttle response is just that bit crisper if you've got fuel injection, and particularly if you've got 2 spark plugs per cylinder. It really does feel, you know, quite direct compared to the older carburetor models. You know, if you go from one to the other, the carby ones, they just feel a little bit fluffy, a little bit kind of irresponsive on the throttle, whereas these really do what your right hand does, comes out the back wheel immediately. So I brought these back in 2017, and as far as I'm concerned, the SVs have got better with age. I love the original SVs because I had one. I thought it was brilliant, and some of my happiest memories are wrapping around the New Forest with my mates or North Dorset. I've ridden every generation of SV, and I've also ridden most of the bikes this engine goes into, like the Gladius, like the V-Strom. I really do think this is one of motorcycling's unsung heroes, because the engine has been put in so many different bikes over the years, and it has had such a long model run. I think almost every biker at one point or another will have encountered this engine in one of its various forms. The new bikes, they're up from 64 horsepower on the original carburetted ones. These are 74 horsepower, unless you restrict it. We've actually got 2 of these in 2 different colours. The red one is the full power one, which is 74 horsepower unrestricted, used for the full A licenses. And then, so we can tell them apart, the other one's in blue. This is our A2 restricted one, so it's capped at 47 horsepower. We did a video recently that details different types of licenses, so if you want to know more about that, you can always have a look at that video and then find out what you can and can't ride at your age. Personally, I really like this bike in A2 form. It feels a lot more torquey and a lot more kind of responsive than if you ride, you know, a bike that's designed to be of the A2 class, you know, like the sort of 300, 500 parallel twin kind of thing. They always feel a bit flat when you stack them up against the SV. Honestly, I probably have more fun on this one than the full power one, because where that power is slightly capped, it means you can kind of wring its neck just that little bit more and like leave it hanging in gear for a bit longer and listen to that throaty V-twin spool up without actually breaking the speed limit. Now, braking on both these bikes is Tokico brakes front and rear, and they've got ABS front and rear as well. For me personally, that is an absolute godsend, you know, particularly when I'm doing DAS and I'm making learners doing their first attempt at an emergency stop at speed on a big heavy bike. I'm really glad that I've got the ABS there just to sort things out if things do start to go out of hand. As of yet, I haven't actually had a learner manage to skid one of these, so I can say that the ABS is pretty good. Now, the handling of the bike, I mean, they're a 200 kilo machine, dripping wet, but doesn't really feel like it. You know, you get so much engine braking, it's very, very rideable for 200 kilos. I was really surprised when I found out what these weighed. I thought that they'd actually be a lot lighter. I had in my head, I had these at about 160 kilos. I'm quite experienced on bikes, so for me to be that far off just shows you that when the bike's on the move, they are so light and so agile and so nimble. Comfort is the only thing that these bikes really fall down in. Ergonomically, they're fairly neutral riding position. If you're my size, as in if you're 6'5" and you sit on one, you will look a bit big. You'll look like you're riding a 125 again. But you know, for people of normal size, ergonomically it's very good. The only downside, the saddles. Like most modern bikes, particularly modern bikes aimed at beginners, and also everyone else in that sort of class is guilty of this as well. They fit a really, really thin seat just so that you get a little bit of extra leg room, and they also make the seat very narrow as well to give you an easier reach to the floor. My learners love it. You know, when they're new to riding, they can usually flat foot the floor, instills confidence. Problem is, for a more experienced rider, a couple of hours in the saddle, you really start to get a lot of numbness and a lot of soreness, particularly if, like me, you ride these bikes 7 days a week. If I had one of these as a personal bike, this would be the first thing that I'd do. I'd take the seat off, I'd take it to an upholstery place, and I'd get it reupholstered with some slightly thicker, slightly nicer foam, and I'd try and make it a little bit wider as well to give my slightly voluminous rear end a little bit more support and a little bit more cushioning. So the reason why we went for SVs, well, there's a couple of reasons. We're fairly friendly with our local Crescent dealership in Charminster. It used to be Crescent Suzuki when I started riding, and then it became Crescent Yamaha. Obviously, us having the relationship with that dealer, we're like, well, we buy our bikes from you, so it looks like we're using Yamahas for the foreseeable. When they switched from Crescent Yamaha back to Crescent Suzuki, we then had to switch back onto the Suzukis or possibly change supplier. A lot of schools at the time were buying up MT-07s. MT-07 is an absolutely cracking bike. A few of my mates have got them. I love to ride them. The problem is, for school use with the MT-07s, I found that when I was trying to do Mod 1 style exercises, I found I was having to use the clutch quite a lot. And although that's not the end of the world, it does mean that you're going to be burning through clutches a lot quicker than what you would on these SVs. A friend of mine who's an instructor that does use MTs in his school said that he has to change them roughly every 10,000 miles. And considering the mileage we put on these bikes, nah, I'd rather have something that holds up a little bit more to Mod 1 abuse. The other reason why we got these bikes is because I absolutely love them, and I would not stop nagging Elliot to get a fleet of SVs in here, because as far as I'm concerned, this is the bike that you should be doing your DAS on, because they are so easy to ride and they are so manageable. Suzuki's really designed the bike with, you know, a new rider in mind. I'm saying that, but you know, you could also soup it up. They ride them in the Super Twins, you know, and it's really easy to get these bikes over 100 horsepower. Light bike with 100 horsepower V-twin, that is a missile. But when Suzuki were designing it, they put in some clever little kind of features to make it more appealing to the beginner market, like the incredibly low seat height. It's also got a gear indicator, tells you what gear you're in. Now that's something that as a new rider, particularly if you're not used to the gearing on a bigger bike, and now you've got 6 gears but your 125 probably had 5, is really handy. That way you're not second guessing when you're on pressure on your test. These bikes also have a low RPM assist. Basically what it means is if you're not putting enough kind of throttle on when you're trying to do your slow maneuvers, your U-turns and stuff, the ECU just ups the fueling just a little bit. It's kind of weird. It takes a little bit of getting used to when you're trying to figure it out. But I found that if I was just trying to do these exercises with just the clutch, you could watch the revs spiking as the ECU was smoothing out my throttle mistakes. Honestly, most of my learners haven't even noticed that it's got low RPM assist, but it is nice to have it there, you know, making sure that you're not stalling it in front of your examiner as easily. Now, we've put crash protectors on these bikes. I think every school in the world has crash protectors, don't they, because the bikes go down. I'm not sure how much these work, as that's an Elliot job, not a me job, although they do a decent job of keeping the bike protected. Like all our school bikes, we also like to put the leather tank protector on there. Well, leather tank protector. It's a Bagster one, isn't it? It's probably not real leather, it's probably pleather, but it's nice and thick. And I find when bikes do go sliding up the road, having that there, it just stops you from ruining the tank as easily. We also like to equip all our DAS bikes with R&G heated grips. This is because we train all year round, and you know, when you're training you don't want to get cold hands, do you? It's really unpleasant. And this way, you know, the amount of DAS courses I have done where on the last day of the DAS we stop for a coffee in our shop in Moordown, and they're going, yeah, I'll just take some R&G heated grips while I'm here, because they really are a really nice addition to the bike. So that's about all I've got to say about these SVs. Absolutely love the series of bikes. Like I said, I've got a long history with these SVs, and I really do feel quite glad that I get to play with these bikes on a daily basis when I'm working. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm sure I'll be back with Nathan filming some other content soon, so stay tuned.